Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Lauren Conlin, and welcome to Pop Crime TV's The Outlier podcast. Today, I am getting back into the alleged systemic rot in Utah. But before we dive in, I want to address some of the messages and comments that I have received from listeners and viewers. Very kind comments, by the way, but criticism, and that's good. And it's about my lack of understanding of the Mormon religion and the Jesus Christ Church of Latter-day Saints. And I want to apologize for seemingly grouping everything together when I talk about this stuff, and these topics are really tough. And I know that that's not the case. Not all Mormons are like this. And it's kind of like saying all Catholic priests are pedos. I know that's not the case, but I am working really hard to understand these religions better. And I'm talking to a few very good people who are involved in these churches as well. So I thank you for your patience, but I wanted to put that out there because I have received a lot of messages and I wanted to address them. Quick recap. David Lee Hamblin, former therapist, was arrested in September of 2022 by the Utah County Sheriff's Office, facing a slew of disturbing and disgusting charges. 3 counts of sodomy on a child, rape of a child, aggravated SA, and more. And some of the other allegations that were recently dismissed with prejudice involve alleged ritualistic child SA spanning decades, some tying to David Lee Hamblin's alleged healing circles. And he ran these healing circles after losing his license for having relationships with clients. And by the way, I have heard speculation that he is still running these healing circles. So I do need to get into that at a later date, kind of dive in there. And just as a reminder, his own daughters and of course others accused him with claims so dark that I don't even want to get into it on YouTube or on a podcast. But again, going back to the American Fort case getting dismissed, that wasn't his first rodeo in getting charges dismissed. In 2012, when his daughter came forward, that case was also dismissed in 2014. But this time, after 29 months of legal wrangling, the 4th District Judge Roger Griffin, he pulled the plug on the case, as I mentioned, with prejudice. The case in 2014 against David Lee Hamblin, that was dismissed without prejudice, meaning it could be reopened again. And, we've talked about it in detail. Prosecutorial blunders, possible withholding of evidence from the Utah County Sheriff's Office. It's crazy what is going on with this American Fort case, or I guess the case is no more. But the Utah County Sheriff's Office actually spoke out and did not take this lying down. And they dropped this bombshell statement. And I was wondering what took them so long. They dropped the statement in March. And I guess it could possibly because Roger Griffin did decide that it would be dismissed with prejudice. And we did not know if it would be able to be reopened back when it was dismissed in February. So maybe that's why they waited. But they essentially disagreed with the ruling, as many of us did. And they called his ruling, quote unquote, abhorrent and slammed the complete lack of due process. So they say they did hand over all evidence, like a key victim interview from September of 2022. They said they handed this over right on time. They claim the prosecution confirmed that it was shared by February 5th, 2025, yet Hamblin's defense team cried foul, saying that it was withheld for over 2 years, which, I mean, if they asked for it, in 2024, which I believe Nathan Evershed did ask for it then, and it was given in 2025, that wouldn't exactly be 2 years. But look, I don't know what to believe anymore. And I feel like a lot of times when I am covering this case, people will tell me different sources saying, hey, don't believe this person. This person seems to be good. Don't believe them, which is why I'm kind of like, okay, I don't know anymore, but this is what the Utah County Sheriff's Office is saying. And they said also in this statement, and I'll include this in the episode notes, that they expected an evidentiary hearing to clear it up, but plot twist, it never happened. And also, this next to me, this image is Sheriff Mike Smith of the Utah County Sheriff's Office, in case you were wondering. But yeah, so this evidentiary hearing to clear everything up, it never happened, says the Utah County Sheriff's Office. No victim testimony, no investigator input, just this one-sided defense win. So they are livid, and they are saying, look, a predator, alleged predator, is now slipping through the cracks once again without a fight. And just zooming out here, this isn't just about David Lee Hamblin. It's about Utah's justice system, in my opinion, right now, looking like Swiss cheese. The sheriff's office points fingers at the prosecution that was led by he was Special Assistant AG, Nathan Evershed. Now, he filed to dismiss the case in February over the evidentiary concerns and the quote unquote discovery problems, if you recall. Fun fact, I guess not so fun. Evershed's brother is a registered sex offender himself. And I understand you cannot judge people by their family. That would be unfair. But this case and everything in this case bothers me. So I think it's important to point that out, that a lot of people involved seem to have these connections with sex offenders. So yeah, it bothers me. And also, Utah, the AG's office will not release records, even post dismissal of a case that will never be opened again, citing the ongoing Sanpete County case where Hamblin still faces charges. And Adam Herbets, I'm sorry for mispronouncing that, of Fox 13, he requested these files and he was denied. So he puts this all on his X account, and I will link that in the episode notes as well. But again, in my opinion, not releasing those records right now, that kind of stinks. I guess I could say alleged corruption, but it seems weird. This case, like I said, will never be reopened again. So just release the records. Let's take a look at it. The public has a right to know. So also, just going back to Judge Griffin's ruling, it heavily leaned on the Barker versus Wingo test, finding these unconstitutional delays, 29 months since filing, Brady violations, exculpatory evidence being buried. I mean, I guess you could draw parallels between that and the American Fort case, except I just don't know who to believe there, who dropped the ball. So unfortunately, the victim, I feel, or survivor, I feel, in this case, still hasn't had a voice. And that is just so troubling to me. And I really hope that perhaps she will get her voice in the Roselle Stevenson case, which is David Lee Hamblin's ex-wife. I have to check in on that. It's been a minute since I've followed up on those filings, but I will definitely do that for the next episode. So the David Lee Hamblin case that is still on the table, the Sanpete Manti case, there was a hearing on April 2nd, and Judge Mandy Larson has sealed all records pertaining to that status hearing. And the court actually requested that for that hearing, all motions be done in writing. I don't feel great about that. Again, the public does have a right to know, especially with all of the finger pointing back and forth by law enforcement and the court. But they also did mention that the defense has to file all of their responding motions by April 9th, and then the court will set oral arguments for April 28th, 2025 at 9:15 a.m., and that is a Monday. Also, David Lee Hamblin's defense attorney in this case, Brian Fries, filed a motion on April 2nd, and this was the, quote, third motion to compel disclosure of complete, unredacted discovery. And this motion, I I don't like where it's going, and you'll see why once I read it. And you know what? It's short, so don't worry. I'm actually going to remove this from the stage here. I'll make myself a little bit bigger, and I will go over this motion right now. And yeah, and you'll see why I am a little concerned. All right. Quote, the defendant, by and through his attorney of record, moves the court to order the state of Utah to provide full, unredacted discovery by all the investigations conducted against the defendant. Presently, the discovery received by counsel is only related to this case and not the discovery that was obtained in the broader investigation. In the now unredacted video at timestamp 5053, Detective Hutchins explained during the interview of the alleged victim, quote, "You have a piece right here that fits into the puzzle," end quote. This was during a discussion that the defendant had been arrested. Further, he discussed that this was a rare instance in this, quote, huge case that has been going on for some time, and it is rare where we get the piece that goes right there. This is the one that we have been missing. This discussion was asserting that this alleged victim is providing that piece that was missing. It is clear to defense counsel that aside from the constant assertions by the state that this was a separate investigation, the investigators were treating this as a large, complex investigation over many years. The defendant has a right for his defense counsel to have access to the entire investigation. Wherefore, the defendant requests an order be issued requiring the state of Utah to provide all discovery held by any of the investigating agencies that has investigated this case and any of the accusations against the defendant. Okay, so you can see why that concerns me. I mean, here we are. We have the defense arguing that law enforcement has treated all of the Hamblin cases as one big investigation across the board. And I can see they're trying to insist that more was hidden from them. And possibly, once again, trying to say, and maybe not, this is again my speculation, but once they get more of the alleged evidence that they are thinking was hidden from them, they're going to try to say, okay, well, these are ritualistic abuse allegations, and those type of allegations don't exist, and they don't exist in this state, yada yada. That makes me incredibly nervous and sick to my stomach. Also, I am clearly not a lawyer, so I think it would be helpful if on one of the next episodes I should talk to someone that can sort of speak to investigations that are done on one defendant who might have cases in different counties, multiple cases, and how that would work. Because I really do want to understand why this could, I guess, or what happens in one jurisdiction, how that could affect another, when truthfully, the cases don't have anything to do with one another. The survivors, I mean, we've got two separate survivors, two separate accusers. I just need to understand that better. So I will work on that for the next episode, getting someone in that can speak to that. But, let's talk about another bigger picture here. Utah's legislative moves. Senate Bill 155, pushed by Senator Todd Weiler. It surfaced in January of 2025, and this is really gross, you guys. It's aiming to cut lifetime sex offender registry stints, and I'm laughing. It's not funny. It's so weird. I just can't believe that I'm reading this, to 10 years. So for some, letting these folks petition for removal from the offender registry after 10 to 12 years instead of 20. So Weiler says it's about second chances for reformed offenders. Okay, you guys sound like New York City protecting criminals. They love to protect criminals here. They want to get their records. It's expunged after 8 years. I mean, that's another story, but this is just giving me weird parallel vibes. And over 11,000 sex offenders are on Utah's list, split between 10 years and lifetime tiers. So I'm just seeing a pattern. I'm seeing a state wanting to soften sex crimes, especially against children. You've got the ritualistic abuse law that we saw that was crumbling. We saw, or we're seeing cases like David Lee Hamblin's cases crumbling. And it's awful for these survivors. I mean, who can they trust at this point? And I know that I've said this so many times and I just sound like a broken record, but David Lee Hamblin, you just look at a guy like this, and it feels to me, in my opinion, that he is a walking red flag. I mean, going back to his license being revoked 25 years ago for abusing patients and sleeping with patients, admitting this and having the his admission of raping one of his daughters on tape and running these healing circles and all of these cases against him getting dropped. I mean, again, I know I'm speaking at nauseum when I say how concerning this is, but I just don't know how else to put this across into the universe without repeating it so many times. And look, Sheriff Mike of the Utah County Sheriff's Office, he has vowed to keep digging, to keep working on this case, but no new arrests in 2 years. And now this dismissal, it doesn't look good to me. It just doesn't. I'm going to remove this. Guess I could keep myself like this, or I could add Sheriff Mike back up here. Let's add Sheriff Mike back up just for a few more minutes while we close this up. So, okay, where are we at? Hamblin's free right now. Obviously, we have the San Pete case. The sheriff's office is screaming foul, yet their hands are tied. The AG seems to be stonewalling. Evershed has a sex offender brother, and Utah is tweaking laws that could ease the heat on sex offenders. So, is this incompetence or is this alleged corruption? Is this some kind of cover up? I don't know. I have my suspicions, and I think many of you know what they are, but I do know that the community is raging, and this feels like a gut punch to survivors. Let me move Sheriff Mike off now. We don't need you anymore for this. And also, I did email the Utah County Sheriff's Office. They are not doing interviews. I'll admit, I didn't try very hard. I should be banging the phones to talk to them, but I know they have a lot going on. We'll see. But I want to do a quick pivot just to another judge in Utah. We spoke briefly on the last episode about Judge Kevin Christensen and Ned Brady Hansen, the fire chief. That disgusting case. Oh my goodness. But in another, I guess, not so shocking turn of events, another judge, 3rd District Court Judge William Kendall, he faces serious charges in Utah. The Davis County attorney has filed counts of forcible SA and drug-related offenses against Kendall following an incident at his Salt Lake City country home. So according to investigators, after a large event that he had, or a large event that was not at his home, Judge Kendall invited a smaller group to his residence where he allegedly provided THC to a woman and touched her very inappropriately without consent. Police later uncovered a lot of different THC products during a search of his home. And Kendall, who was appointed to the bench in 2014, is no longer presiding over cases at this moment as his criminal investigation unfolds. And, I don't want to get into the THC discussion. I mean, I live in New York and it's legal here. People that partake in THC, I mean, I'm just going to say this, like, if you're a judge, if you are law enforcement, I mean, I would say be careful. Don't do things like that, or don't allegedly do things like that. It's not a good look. And again, it's just more corruption, in my opinion, in Utah. It's gross. Why are we hearing about different cases like this every single week? Lastly, as part of my episode today, I want to bring up another person, another man, another Utah sicko, if you will. And this was brought to my attention by Jason and Alexia Preston of We Are the People. But this is a man named Alan Bower Bassett. And this is dark. Very, very dark. So Bassett was arrested for child SA dating back over 35 years, kind of like David Lee Hamblin. And like David Lee Hamblin, these alleged systemic failures really allowed him to evade accountability for a really long time. So let's just walk through his case chronologically, step by step. In 1977, Alan Bower Bassett, he was a family man, later a retired air traffic controller, moved into a newly built home in Fruit Heights, Davis County, Utah, with his wife and children. Court documents paint a really, really chilling picture. Over the next 12 years until 1989, allegedly, Bassett preyed on young girls in the neighborhood, girls aged 5 to 10, friends of his own kids. And this gives me the creeps, but these were not stranger kids. They were children who came to his house for sleepovers, play dates, dance classes, hikes, etc. And these survivors later detailed how Bassett would lure them into these vulnerable moments, sitting on his lap, undressing in front of him, or on hikes, he would try to touch them allegedly inappropriately. And one account even describes him abusing a girl as a helicopter flew overhead, which just was, I guess, symbolizing how brazenly this guy operated just in plain sight. So, according to court records, the abuse only stopped when Bassett moved away from this area in 1989. But of course, the scars didn't vanish from these survivors. They festered silently for decades, as they do in Utah. Not just in Utah. Sorry, I should say this happens everywhere, but I am focusing on Utah right now. But let's fast forward to 1988. A civil suit emerges. One woman sues Bassett and his wife for emotional damages tied to alleged abuse. But here's where the plot kind of takes a turn. The case is dismissed after the survivor struggles with the emotional toll of pursuing it. Court docs reveal a very murky deal here. Bassett reportedly agreed to pay for her counseling, although no written contract ever surfaced, and she never claimed any of these funds. And then in May of 1989, Bassett's legal team claims he struck a broader non prosecution agreement with the then Deputy Davis County Attorney Brian Namba. This draft, unsigned, promised no charges for any of his sexual activities from 1978 to 1989 if he disclosed his actions to victims and their parents, paid for therapy, and completed some kind of treatment. A signed letter from that month referenced that deal, but no fully executed version ever existed. So ethically, this raises red flags. Did Davis County trade justice for convenience? Did they shield a prosecutor to avoid a messy trial? I mean, we just don't know. We don't know at this point, but this agreement becomes Bassett's lifeline, if you will, decades later. So, for years, silence. Silence, everything and anything about his alleged actions. There's just silence. And the statute of limitations locks many victims out of legal recourse. So, Utah law at the time didn't account for delayed reporting, which is common in child abuse cases. So, Bassett lives quietly in Payson in his senior community, just his past buried away. But then another civil suit in January of 2020 emerges, echoing the same abuse claims. And then it's dismissed and time runs out. I mean, I don't have the exact reason that this is dismissed, this 2020 lawsuit, but it was. And again, Bassett walks free. I guess you could, I don't want to blame the justice system without seeing these documents, but if we're going back to the way that history has been when it comes to this guy and many others, yeah, something happened. So again, ethically, it's another gut punch. Justice deferred isn't justice. It seems like abandonment. So then in August of 2020, several victims, now adults, come forward to the Davis County Sheriff's Office with allegations against Bassett. And detectives log hundreds of hours tracking down more survivors and interviewing them. Who does this sound like? Yes, David Lee Hamblin. So there are women who have carried this trauma for over 40 years. And the sheriff's office, they uncover at least 5 prosecutable cases, though many more are there, but they fall outside of statutory limitations. So, I mean, the bravery of these women and these survivors, it is a reckoning to say the least. But I have to wonder what happened with the other 2 cases. So on June 10th, 2024, Bassett, who is now 75 years old, is arrested at his Payson home. He's booked into the Davis County Jail on 8 second-degree felony counts of aggravated SA of a child, and he's held without bail. During questioning, his words are wild, literally wild. He says, quote, "If they say I did it, I did it. Why would they lie?" He admits to abusing children in Fruit Heights, but can't or won't count his victims or try to figure out how many survivors or victims he had. And Chief Deputy Taylor West, he spoke out. He said, quote, "It's been 40 years that some of these victims have sought justice, and we're happy to tell them that Allan Basset is off the streets. The sheriff's commitment is clear, but the arrest feels bittersweet decades late," end quote. By August 13th, 2024, Bassett's attorney files a motion to dismiss, waiving the 1989 agreement like a get out of jail free card. They argue that it's a blanket contract barring prosecution for any sexual acts from that era. But no signed copy exists, just a draft and a letter, yet his defense is saying this is binding. I mean, sure, I get it. That's your job. You are a defense attorney. Sure, say it's binding, whatever. But ethically, that's bullshit. That's a vague deal. It's possibly unenforceable, and it doesn't erase accountability for past heinous crimes. The prosecution counters that Bassett minimized his abuse in 1989, omitting multiple victims and incidents, voiding any deal. So now we have the court just left to untangle this mess. In October of 2024, Bassett, like Hamblin, is released to house arrest. Another leniency, that he seems to win. But he can't follow the rules. He makes unauthorized stops on grocery runs and fails to report being near children. The court's patience is wearing thin. So now we're back, I want to say present basically, because on March 7th, 2025, the Second District Court in Farmington literally becomes a battleground here. Judge Jennifer Valencia oversees an evidentiary hearing on Bassett's dismissal motion. The room is packed, by the way. Neighbors, church members, survivor families. And the survivor families were all wearing white, symbolizing lost innocence, which really makes me want to cry. But dozens of women, they testified over 9 hours, reliving trauma from 35 years ago. And a woman, I will quote, Patrice Peterson, says, quote, "All of my friends were on the stand testifying against someone who abused them for years. What he did devastated our neighborhood." And Bassett was there in a bow tie, apparently, cuffed, and Thank goodness Valencia revoked his house arrest for the above violations I mentioned and sent him back to jail. And apparently Bassett was sobbing. Sorry, I'm smiling, but it's like, whatever, dude, you're gross, allegedly. But more witnesses are slated for April as well. And, some of these witnesses here, and friends of witnesses, they were fuming. They were saying things like, look, the DA knew, the police knew, and they gave him a free pass for decades. I mean, it really is. It's unbelievable, yet it's almost not. So we will await an April hearing for Allan Basset. And I should be talking about this case as well soon with Alexia and Jason of We Are the People Utah, because we should really get into that one. I mean, again, I gave you sort of like a rundown here, but yeah, another really disturbing case where another man just gets to slip through the cracks walking free. So just stepping back, it's not just Allan Bassett's story and David Lee Hamblin's story. Seemingly, it's Utah's story. Really, it's Utah's. So one thing is clear, though. Survivors, they will not stop. They will not be quiet, and they are stronger than a lot of people realize. So that is it for today's dive on Utah. Utah's justice system, in my opinion, has some explaining to do, and I will keep watching. So please continue to reach out to me. Let me know what you think. I love to hear your thoughts. I love to hear any tips you might have. You can hit me up on X or email me. But until then, everyone, stay safe, stay vigilant, and thank you for listening. I'm Lauren Conlin.